Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Shay Explores Daily, and today I've got another video for you guys. I'm here at the RAF Museum here in northwest London. Well, I'm gonna look at the history of the Royal Air Force and the history of aviation here in the United Kingdom. This is quite an interesting museum because the RAF officially goes back to the First World War, but the history of air forces in Britain goes back before that. So if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Let's go and have a little story of the history of the RAF. So guys, behind me looks like some kind of RAF missile from the Second World War, if I'm not mistaken. As we all know, during the Second World War, the RAF underwent huge bombing campaigns in various locations against Germany and its allies. Essentially at first, the RAF took heavy losses, but as time went on, they decided to do a bombing campaign at night. So guys, behind me you've got an aircraft engine from the 1940 Battle of Britain between the United Kingdom and Germany. So as you can see, 2,937 pilots and other aircrew officially took part in the Battle of Britain. 544 fighter command aircrew were killed sadly, and essentially you can see here some photos of these brave servicemen in the Battle of Britain going out to essentially defend their country. So this here represents what an RAF plane would have looked like in the early days. So we're talking anything between sort of the First and the Second World War, 1920s and 1930s and so on. Behind me, as you can see, is a marine power boat. Now what did this do? So essentially the RAF had power boats that essentially were sent out to sea to rescue obviously planes that had either broken down or had been damaged. They were made to essentially rescue servicemen in need. So here you've got the uniform of leading aircraftman Geoffrey Sherlock, who was based as a fireman in the RAF, I believe, and his father was a World War I veteran. And here you've got the uniform of Sergeant Joan Elizabeth Mortimer, who joined the Women's Artillery Air Force in 1939. So this here is a Powerjets W2 500 engine, and essentially this goes back to 1937 and was one of the first jet engines to be produced in the UK. And here you can see a huge variety of jet engines that the RAF helped to create back in the 1930s. So as you look along here, you can see 1, 2, and then you can see a couple here, so 3, and then this don't look like an engine, but as you can see, the RAF has helped to innovate engines for many years. The RAF worked collaboratively with people like Rolls-Royce because the RAF had to keep innovating to essentially keep up its commitment of helping keep Britain's airspace safe and so on. So working with people like Rolls-Royce was vital in this mission. So behind me you've got a Westland Sea King, and this goes back between the years of 1962 and 1978. These were designed essentially for search and rescue missions of civilians and personnel up and down the UK. This here at its time, during its period of creation, was ahead of its time. And as you can see, it's a very big aircraft. Fun fact as well, Prince William has actually flown one of these as well. Back in 2011, when he was doing his RAF training, he flew one of these. So as you see, you can see different parts of this. So you can see, got the crew entrance door, you've got a port, you've got a main fuselage compartment that can carry 22 people. You've got here a 6-blade rotator and so on and so forth. And you can see all the dimensions here. So top speed is 131 miles an hour. The length you can see here, which is 16.9 meters, and so on and so forth. So I forgot to mention, the museum is broken down into a series of hangars. So hangars 1 to 6. So I've come into hangar 2 now, and hangar 2 is about World War I in the air. So everything in here is talking about the air battles and the aviation history of World War I. So behind me you've got the Avro 504K aircraft, which goes all the way back to 1914. So this essentially was used, I believe, in the beginning as a training aircraft to essentially teach pilots how to fly. I believe these were most commonly seen in areas of the country like Sussex and so on. But this here was actually one of the best of its time. So here you've got a diagram of the Avro 504K and all its various compartments. So as you can see, here it's got a Lewis gun, essentially for attack and defense. It's got a gun mount, as you can see there. It's got a nacelle to accommodate the crew. It's got a rudder bar right here. Then as you can see, it's got a gravity petrol tank. One of the reasons why the RAF Museum is here in Hendon is because Hendon was an area that actually was famous for producing RAF aircrafts, pretty much. Behind me you can see some engines from the aircrafts, but this area employed many men and women who worked long hours. Some of them were underpaid, but they worked in this area to produce aircrafts for the RAF. And Hendon is essentially a pioneer in terms of British defence when you think about it. So here you can see a factory. I'm guessing this is here in Hendon. Now as you can see all the workers there. Huge amount of women with some men as well, basically. So men were originally employed as carpenters and did metal work, whereas the women did like seamstress work, pretty much. But here you can see an example of what the factory would have looked like during that era. So this here is a Cauldron G.3 aircraft, and it first flew in 1914. And essentially, I believe it came from France or Belgium. It was mainly a civil aircraft from 1921 to 1936 when it flew to the UK and appeared at various air shows, pretty much. Some cool fun facts for you. When the First World War started, there was around 2,073 servicemen serving in Britain's air forces in 1914. At the end of the war in 1918, this went up to about 313,000 servicemen and servicewomen serving in the Royal Air Force. And roughly 9,300 servicemen died in the RAF during the First World War. This here in front of me is a Vickers FB5 gun bus. And this essentially came into service in 1915. And it equipped the first British two-seat fighter squadron. This plane here is a Royal Aircraft Factory RE8, and essentially it was nicknamed Harry Tate after the famous comedian. So behind me you've got a Panavia Tornado, and this was developed jointly by the UK, West Germany and Italy, and was used in 1991 in the Gulf War to attack Iraqi airfields. So as you can see, it was designed for high speed and low attack missions, and you can see here the exact dimensions. So it had a maximum altitude of 50,000 feet, and it was used between 1982 and 2001. So guys, this here is a Buccaneer aircraft, and it goes back to 1969 during the Cold War era. So essentially this plane here was designed to carry, I think it was laser focus equipment. It's no longer in use, but as you can see, it's absolutely humongous. And also as well, this here is a Cold War missile as well. So in front of me you've got a American Lockheed C-130 Hercules, and this plane here has been part of many joint missions between the RAF and the US Air Force. So I'm inside the Chinook, and as you can see, there's got some rules here basically. So passengers, irrespective of rank, are not to alight from or board helicopters without first obtaining clearance from the pilot or aircrew. And you've got a dangerous thing there. During periods when the main rotors are disengaging or engaging, there is a severe risk of injury from sailing or dipping of the main rotor blades. So you can see exactly there is where the pilot obviously would sit, and then this is obviously the door, I'm guessing where they'd enter and exit, and you get a good rough picture of what you see from inside here. So yeah, it's not the biggest, as you can see, but it's not designed to be too comfortable. It's designed to obviously transport soldiers and military personnel. These here are still in service, and I have been in service since around 1966, and they've been in service in places like Afghanistan, Iraq and other locations around the world. So guys, this container behind me is from the Falklands War in 1982, and essentially this is a container converted into a chapel. Now believe it or not, a lot of soldiers were actually very religious. So this here was converted to allow soldiers to have their prayer and time of mourning during the Falklands War. So this section of the museum talks about the RAF between 1919 and 1939. So that sort of 20-year period between the First and Second World Wars. So this is a hook starter, and it was built using a Ford T model car parts. Essentially, as aircraft engines became more powerful, starting them by hand became harder and a lot more dangerous. The hook starter like this in front of me essentially was one of the first vehicles designed specifically to work with aircraft. I want you guys to get a good look at the amount of aircraft, different types of aircraft that's actually in here basically. So as you can see, it's a huge variety of aircraft, and it just talks about the RAF and how it survived during those 20 years. But as you can see, just a huge variety of innovation and creations in this room is incredible. This here is a Bristol Bulldog, and it was built in 1930 and used as a demonstration aircraft. It was never flown by the RAF, but this was restored in 1961 pretty much and put here as a piece of display. Although mainly used to defend Britain, these aircraft were sometimes used in other conflicts or wars that had British interest in it, such as Italy's invasion of Ethiopia, I think in 1935, if I'm not mistaken. Behind me shortly, you're going to see an example of what it was like inside of a fighter's cockpit. So as you can see, the cockpit right there, for two obviously pilots, one at the front and one behind, and you can see the seat there and essentially the steering wheel what they had. So as you see, it wasn't that luxurious in terms of space, but you get an idea of what it sort of looked like. Here you've got like a back compartment with a bit there, and you get a gist of how long this aircraft is. Pretty much goes all the way back up there. So it's called a Supermarine Southampton Mark I pilot's cockpit, and you can get an idea from this angle what it looks like from the inside. So it's got a control column and wheel, it's got a pilot seat which offsets to the left to allow crew to pass, it's got engine controls, it's got a pitch trim and control wheel. Here you've got a photo of a squadron, I think it's from 1938 or 1939, and you've got a really cool seat guy here. Great people, and as you can see the squadron here. It is noted that during the Second World War, millions of Commonwealth soldiers from places like India, for example, helped to serve in the Allied forces. Here you can see the inside of another cockpit of a plane, and as you can see, this is a lot more detailed. So you can kind of see there, that looks like some kind of seatbelt, etc. And then you can see all the buttons on the controls there. I don't know if you guys can see it clearly. Can someone help me as well? This rear seat thing, is that like a booster where they could eject? I'm guessing that is, yeah. It looks like some kind of booster, basically. And did the rear pilot have the same amount of steering control as the front pilot? I don't think so. But someone let me know in the comments, please. So yeah, guys, just walking through the hangar as normal. As you can see here, pretty much. You've got a Panavia Tornado F3, pretty much. Then over here, you've got a Supreme Spitfire MK. So you've got a Supreme Spitfire. This here is a consolidated B-24L Liberator, and this aircraft served essentially as part of the RAF Command Southeast Asia in the closing stages of the Second World War. It essentially bombed targets over the Japanese-occupied Dutch East Indies, as well as dropping supplies to allies in Malaysia. So yet again, you can see exactly what's here. So you've got a front gun turret, upper gun turret, you've got a flap, the nose wheel, and also as well, I believe, as I can see here, it was active between 1941 and 1946. So this here is an oil and coolant transporter from the Second World War. So this trailer here in front of me essentially has separate compartments to allow various types of liquids to be carried, pretty much. So here you can just see some more aircraft, as you can see there, pretty much. And as I walk around, I believe this is regarding telecommunications. This is essentially what the soldiers used to communicate with each other whilst they were in the air. As you go around, You can see just some more airplanes and stuff. And this section here talks about, I believe, pretty much different signs and signals. So you've got outbound flight, enemy coast ahead, bomb doors open. I believe these are the various stages of an operation. So you can see here, you reach the target area but are canned by searchlights and sustain flak damage. First one here is you successfully take off. So I think these are the various stages of an operation for the RAF during the Second World War. So I'm underneath an RAF plane from the Cold War, as you can see. And as you can see, it's absolutely humongous. So you've got some cars here. This is an RAF bomb disposal car. So obviously bombs were put in this car, and then obviously they went to a bomb disposal site. As you can see, you've got a missile here. And as you can see, it's absolutely huge. You can see the front of the aircraft there pretty much. And as you look up, you get a good picture of how big it is. And here you see a diagram of what it looked like in action up in the skies. These were in action between 1956 and 1984. Behind me, you've got a memorial for the 350,000 or so American personnel who served in Great Britain during the Second World War. So during the Second World War, a lot of American soldiers were stationed here to obviously have a base in Europe. And here they worked alongside their British counterparts as allies side by side. Hence why I always say that the American and British alliance is one of the most special alliances anywhere on the planet. So this here is an auxiliary towing vehicle from 1941. And I believe these were obviously pivotal during the Blitz when London was on fire. So as you can see on top, you can see the ladder there. And essentially these vehicles were pivotal to obviously removing the fires. You can see here, pretty much, you've got the water cannons and so on. And as you can see, Coventry in the West Midlands after the Blitz bombed in 1940. So here you've got a Bedford Queen Mary tractor, basically. And pretty much this is an aircraft recovery vehicle. So as you can see, you've got the truck there, and then you've got the aircraft, which will go on the back of the truck onto the trailer. And these trucks would essentially transport these to wherever they need to go. So sometimes they would have been obviously in great condition, or maybe they may have been damaged. But these trucks here, as you can see, would transport these wherever they needed to go. So this wall is dedicated to all the pilots who took part in the Battle of Britain. So for example, you've got British pilots like Whitney Straight, you've got a Kiwi here, Kenneth Tate, you've got a lady called Joan Mortimer, and just a huge variety of people. So you've got here Andrew Humphrey. So all of these pilots were RAF pilots during the Battle of Britain. That is it, guys, for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. I'm doing weekly videos now, so please let me know where should I go next. Write it down in the comments below. In the meantime, I'll see you on the next video.